After Brazil and South Africa, the Grand Prix scene moves to Europe, to Belgium. Not to the Spa circuit where the Belgian Grand Prix was held last year, but to Zolder, the scene of so many past Belgian Grand Prix. Now, Zolder is very tough, it's very demanding. It's fairly flat, but it's twisty, it's hard on brakes, and it's going to be very difficult for the cars to go the race distance on a tank of fuel. And sadly, the man who won here in 1982, John Watson, is here just as a spectator.
And off goes Rosberg, and Watson is through. Change of lead. Rosberg goes out, hits the curbing at the side, and now John Watson is within sight of that checkered flag. He's going down the finishing straight, and the Belgian Grand Prix has been won by John Watson.
It's some time since the bombshell dropped. Has the pain gone?
Well, there wasn't really so much pain. There was obviously a disappointment because it was like a marriage, really. I mean, I was together with Marlboro McLaren for 5 years, and when you divorce, mentally you're still married, but in physical terms you're not. So I still find myself referring to the team and to aspects of that. So it is a little bit strange, but being here today was an interesting experience. Not driving, but sitting in the pit wall and watching everybody else drive.
You must find it ironic that your replacement in the Marlboro McLaren team, Alain Prost, is now leading the World Championship.
It is ironic in one respect, because I believe that if there hadn't been a driver change, then it could have been me leading the championship.
Are you surprised that all the main teams except McLaren have not done well this season?
Yes, because all those teams that haven't done well are the teams that did the most testing. And it's an irony that Marlboro McLaren, who were late with their car, went to Brazil really with very little experience of it, and were right on the pace. They have a car that is easier on tyres than the opposition. They have an engine that is more economical than the opposition, yet they've done the least amount of running.
We'll be hearing more from John Watson during the season. But now here's a check on the World Championship table, which shows that John's replacement at McLaren, Alain Prost, is leading his teammate Niki Lauda, with Keke Rosberg third and Elio De Angelis and Derek Warwick tying for fourth, ahead of Eddie Cheever and Riccardo Patrese. And in the Constructors' Championship, McLaren have a massive 18-point lead over Williams and Alfa Romeo. In practice, Ferrari, who've yet to score, really came good, with Michele Alboreto in pole position and his teammate René Arnoux second. Rosberg third, Warwick fourth, De Angelis fifth, and Manfred Winkelhock sixth. But the championship leaders are well down. Prost 8th and Lauda 14th. And so are the Brabhams, with Piquet and Fabi 9th and 18th. The three other British drivers are all in. Nigel Mansell 10th, Martin Brundle an excellent 22nd, and Jonathan. And alongside him is René Arnoux. As they go away behind them in third and fourth positions on the grid are Keke Rosberg and Derek Warwick.
Well, welcome to the start of the European season, and although we've had 2 Grand Prix already this year, I would say that this race is more difficult to predict than any race we've seen for a long time. I've talked to a lot of the teams this morning, and uncertainty is, in fact, the only team that I spoke to the whole morning who seemed certain of anything was the Alfa Romeo team, who were certain that they were going to run out of petrol. And with that, nobody could disagree, and certainly not with their confidence. But apart from then, everybody seems to be in one sort of problem or another. The fuel regulations continue to provide a lot of headaches and a lot of head scratching. Ferrari, for example, who have totally turned around their first 2 races' form, have changed their fuel injection system fundamentally back to the old normal injection system rather than the computerized electronic system, and that we would imagine is in search of more power, which they seem to have found again. But it will be very interesting to see how their fuel consumption goes as a result of having more power available through what's supposedly a less accurate system. Of course, this is all connected with the fact that these cars, as regular viewers will know, are restricted to 220 litres of fuel this year, which is considerably less than they've used in the past, when they've been able to use as much as they want. And therefore, it's a bit of an economy run, and they have to judge their fuel usage. Now, here they are, coming around the last hairpin of the familiar Zolder circuit. Very tight, twisty, very hard work for the drivers. It undulates, it winds a lot, it's got a couple of very tight, slow corners. It's quite bumpy, which adds to the physical strain for the drivers, and it's very hard on the car's brakes and transmission because it's very much a stop-go circuit. The lot of sharp acceleration, winding up the transmission and putting a strain on that, and then heavy braking with these cars carrying a lot of weight. 220 litres of fuel weighs, well, a lot. I could work it out. Pulling up onto the grid now.
Led by Michele Alboreto, number 27, with behind him, in second place on the grid, his teammate René Arnoux. Then Keke Rosberg. On your left and Rosberg's right is the fourth place man on the grid, Derek Warwick. Then in the black and gold car, Elio De Angelis. And then in the yellow ATS, Manfred Winkelhock. 70 laps, 185 miles. Derek Ongaro ready to press the light switch, which will take them from red to green and go. And Keke Rosberg is left very badly on the line as the rest of them get away. Rosberg, third on the grid, was miraculously missed by everybody else and has got away, but is 26th and last as the leaders stream away round the Bianchi bend and up towards the chicane on lap 1. And it's Ferrari, Renault, Ferrari. Alboreto is leading. In third place is René Arnoux, and Derek Warwick is in second place in the Renault. Fourth is Winkelhock through the chicane on towards Terlamen, and it's Alboreto, Warwick, Arnoux, first, second and third. Ferrari, Renault, Ferrari. And Michele Alboreto is doing here in Belgium what he did at Brazil. He's leading strongly from the start of the race, but don't forget that in Brazil he broke down. Derek Warwick in a strong position to challenge, keeping ahead of René Arnoux as they're coming down towards the end of the first lap, and this is the end of the first lap, and it's Alboreto leading, Warwick second, René Arnoux third, Winkelhock fourth, De Angelis fifth, Riccardo Patrese sixth, and already Alain Prost, there he is, the third of the cars that you're looking at now, the red and white car, is up into seventh position, Alain Prost, and he started 8th on the grid, so he's already made up a place.
Yes, at the start, Keke Rosberg, he appeared to lose revs on his engine, or anyway, it came off the cam, and these turbo engines are very difficult to get running. He sat there trying to flip up his throttle. It was popping and banging, and the amazing thing is that the whole field managed to avoid him, because it's very, very narrow here, this grid at Zolder, and very difficult to see from the cars coming behind when you've got a whole lot of cars between you and the stationary one, and he was near the front of the grid. So it was a fortunate escape for everybody, both Keke and the people behind him, and he's got the engine going, but he's now got a big problem because this circuit has a real premium on overtaking. It's very difficult to overtake, for example, and that could be Rosberg cruising in. No.
It's one of the Tolmans. It looks like Johnny Cecotto. It is Johnny Cecotto.
But, for example, on the overtaking situation, both Prost and Lauda were very quick this morning in the warm-up and full tanks and in race configuration, but from their lowly grid positions, they're going to have a lot of trouble catching up. So yes, there you see the Tolman just cruising in. He's into the pit lane now, and so he'll be out of the way of the other people in the race. Meanwhile, Alboreto confirming the form that won him his Ferrari drive. They've got the car going for the first time properly this year, and as soon as they did that, Alboreto has collected the first pole position of his career, and now, as we've seen him do so before, looks very poised and controlled in the lead.
Yes, this very mature young Italian, but Derek Warwick holding on well in the Renault in second position. Don't forget that it's Derek Warwick's intention to go through the whole race without changing tyres. We don't know what the Ferraris are going to do. The Goodyear runners, most of them, except Ferrari of Williams, have got a brand new rear tyre. There's Manfred Winkelhock in 4th position behind René Arnoux, and in 5th place it's still Elio De Angelis leading the Alfa Romeo. In 6th position of Riccardo Patrese, and we are completing lap 3 out of 70. Nigel Mansell is in 15th position. Martin Brundle is in a strong 18th position, and he started 22nd. And Jonathan Palmer, the last of the 4 British drivers, is down in 26th position. Looking now at Derek Warwick on lap 4. And you can see the gap now between Alboreto, who's pulling away a bit from Warwick, who's keeping ahead. And that is one of the Alfa Romeos out of the race already. It is that of Riccardo Patrese, who you see walking away.
Well, the opening laps that we have seen have very much confirmed practice form. The Ferrari is going very well indeed. Derek Warwick, who's been having a marvellous meeting so far, he was fastest despite only using race tyres to do his time on Friday in qualifying. He's gone very well in the warm-up, and he's holding on well in amongst the 2 Ferraris. Alboreto opening a tiny bit of air, Arnoux holding on apparently comfortably, but they are opening up a gap on Winkelhock. Problem nowadays, though, of course, with these new regulations and a lot of tyre changes, Goodyear have been a little bit behind in the first couple of races, so they've been rushing through a panic program, hence the tyres, the new rear tyres Murray was talking about. Bit of a mistake there from Warwick, lost a little bit of ground, and Arnoux is beginning to, yes, having a look. He's not nearly close enough, but I suppose just looking for future reference, see if he can see a hole there. It's interesting to see if Warwick can make up that little bit of ground that he's lost. But the big problem is we've got question mark over, for instance, particularly with Ferrari. Warwick's a fairly known quantity, but we don't know how their engines are going to, how much fuel they're going to use, and we don't know how much tyre wear they're going to have on the Goodyears, and how conservative or how speculative they're being on their hard or soft compound.
Cecotto has gone into the pits with a brake problem, and the order now on lap 5 out of 70. As you can see, Michele Alboreto leading, Warwick 2nd, Arnoux is in 3rd position, Winkelhock is 4th, De Angelis is 5th, Alain Prost is in 6th position, Nigel Mansell is now in 15th position, and Martin Brundle is 18th, with Jonathan Palmer still bringing up the rear, and Derek Warwick, with those longer-lasting, he hopes, tyres on his car, is keeping station, and it's Goodyear tyres leading, Michelin 2nd, Goodyear 3rd, and Pirelli in 4th position. So there's a very even spread of the important tyre manufacturers as the leader goes through to complete his 5th lap. Alboreto, and it looks to me as though Winkelhock is gaining on Arnoux, and Warwick in 2nd position is pulling away from the Frenchman in the Ferrari a bit. You can see for yourselves.
Yes, this looks like a bit of a breakthrough for Pirellis, because they have made good qualifying cars in the past, but they've never really made or certainly not a race car that has been actually successful. And Winkelhock has now closed that gap, the ground that he's lost. He also, somebody slowing down in a bit of trouble. Could it be one of the McLarens? I think it is. I can't see it, and they say it's Prost on the caption. So Alain Prost looks to be in mechanical trouble and slowing down, which will be a great disappointment to the McLaren team. Niki Lauda is way back in something like 11th place at the moment, but of course he started 14th on the grid. But whilst he's fighting to get through back markers, if that's what he's doing, these chaps have got a clear road that we're looking at now, and they're going away. And I must say it's interesting, and I think that's just Prost parking, so that's not really, we've seen him, we know he's in trouble. But Winkelhock's performance is particularly gratifying to Pirellis, because he's not the kindest of drivers to tyres. He throws his car about a lot, and that's not the way to look after them. So if they're standing up to Winkelhock, fairly, what I suppose what is called muscular driving technique, then, whoops, and now they're smothering him in foam. It probably wasn't on fire at all, but maybe his turbo just caught.
Alain Prost, of course, is leading the championship, and the pendulum is swinging, as it very often does in Grand Prix racing. McLarens, who seemed so dominant, and who are actually leading the Constructors' Championship by an enormous margin, have now already lost one of their cars. As you look at Warwick second, Arnoux third, and Winkelhock closing right up with the Frenchman. There in fifth place is Elio De Angelis, and right behind De Angelis now is Nelson Piquet. So Piquet is absolutely streaking through the field because he is up from 9th position to 6th.
Yes, and the lead is a real big battle going on at the front at the moment, because Warwick looks to me as if he's using everything he's got just to hold on to Alboreto, who naturally in turn is using everything he's got just to get away, and it's an important psychological trial of strength. Likewise, Arnoux is busy holding on, and as well as resisting a challenge from Winkelhock, who's coming at him in 4th place, trying to get past. So it's an important psychological struggle to see whether they actually separate or whether they can all hold on to each other for the time being.
So there are De Angelis and Piquet in respectively 5th and 6th position. Elio De Angelis in the JPS Lotus with its V6 Renault turbocharged engine. Nelson Piquet hoping that his BMW engine lasts, which it hasn't done in the previous 2 Grand Prix at Brazil and South Africa, or in practice. There is confirmation of the positions. You can see the gaps for yourselves. Ferrari's 1st and 2nd, Renault 3rd.
Now this is where Piquet's got to get it dead right. He's got a bit of a straight here. The Brabham we saw in South Africa is very fast in a straight line, and he's got a chance to outbrake, but he's not close enough in fact. This is the problem with the Zolder circuit, because they're all running very big wings. The car in front makes a lot of turbulence. The car behind doesn't grip as well when he's close because of the turbulence of the air. And so the closer you get, the less grip you have, and it's the old problem of getting close enough.
That's Thierry Boutsen in the pits, the Belgian, in his first race in the Arrows BMW, and it looks as though it may well be over already. They had balancing problems getting the car to run cleanly during practice, but there's a terrific scrap going on behind the 5th and 6th men, where there they are, De Angelis and Piquet, because Eddie Cheever, who has done extremely well for Alfa Romeo this year, is going to be coming into your picture as Piquet goes through and takes Elio De Angelis and 5th position. So Nelson Piquet, the reigning world champion, on lap 9 out of 70, goes up to 5th position. He's already pulling away from Elio De Angelis. Behind Elio De Angelis, who is now 6th. In 7th place is Eddie Cheever, going well in the very nimble Alfa Romeo, but a car that, as James said earlier on, is going to have problems completing the race without running out of fuel. And just behind Eddie Cheever in 8th position is Patrick Tambay. Now Nigel Mansell is up to 14th, Martin Brundle is up to 16th position. And there is the race leader. There's the gap between Michele Alboreto, the race leader, on lap 9 out of 70. And the next man you should see will be Derek Warwick in the yellow Renault. And Alboreto has now got something like a 5-second lead already. There is Boutsen, an unhappy man because his Belgian Grand Prix is finished, and naturally, Boutsen, being a Belgian and the centre of interest here, wanted desperately to do well in this race. He's standing by the car, obviously hoping to get back in it. Harvey Postlethwaite, the man who designed this Renault that you're looking at now, said yesterday that they knew that the C4 Ferrari that Alboreto is driving was better than the C3 last year's car, and they just had to persevere with it. Well, they did persevere. They got a new kind of fuel injection. They've tried all sorts of tyre combinations. They were throwing all sorts of different types of compounds and constructions at the cars yesterday. They got the balance and the handling absolutely superb. Michele Alboreto, who has driven for Ken Tyrrell for 3 seasons before he went to Ferrari, is now showing just how good he is. There is Warwick, who is 2nd, but where is Arnoux, who should be in 3rd position and was closer to this than this to Derek Warwick last time I saw him. Meantime, Keke Rosberg is surging through the field. He started last at 26th. There's Arnoux in the background, and Keke Rosberg is now up to 11th position on the 11th lap out of 70. Derek Warwick second, in the background Arnoux third. Winkelhock is still in fourth position. Piquet fifth, De Angelis sixth, Chiva seventh, Torbay eighth, Lauda ninth, Vichesa is 10th, Rosberg 11th, and Theo Fabi in 12th position.
Well, it looks as if the leading battle has resolved itself for the moment in favour of Michele Alboreto. He's now managed to, as it were, break the toe that he was giving to Derek Warwick, and he's pulled out something like over 6.5 seconds lead, and seems to be steadily increasing that lead. In the meantime, the concertina is stretching, because there is Derek Warwick, and he's pulled out a 4 or 5 second lead on René Arnoux. But Winkelhock is keeping up well and still threatening. He's very much in touch with Arnoux, and of course Piquet is coming up to challenge. He's got a bit of air to make up. To catch, he's about sort of 5 seconds behind Manfred Winkelhock at the moment.
Boutsen getting out into the race, and those of you who know about these things may be surprised to hear me referring to the Belgian Grand Prix as being 70 laps long when you expected it to be 71. Well, for some reason that is not at all clear to any of us, it was decided to include the warm-up lap in the 71 laps, so the actual race itself is going to be over 70 and not as anticipated 71 laps. There goes Eddie Cheever through the picture. That's Patrick Tambay. There is Niki Lauda, and behind Lauda and gaining fast is Keke Rosberg. Now Lauda is in 9th position, Keke Rosberg therefore in 10th position, and see the way the Finn is driving his Williams V6 turbo Honda powered car. He's really charging. Rosberg, number 6, is in 3rd position in the World Championship thanks to his 2nd place in Brazil, closing up on Lauda, who is closing up on Tambay, and Tambay is in 8th position behind Eddie Cheever. There's Lauda. Rosberg. Tambay in front. And the order now on lap 12 is Alboreto leads, Warwick 2nd, Arnoux 3rd, Winkelhock 4th, Piquet 5th, De Angelis 6th, Cheever 7th, and then the battle that we're looking at between Tambay, Lauda and Rosberg, all of them gaining. And Ghinzani has come up, the Italian driver who crashed in South Africa, is now up into 13th place in his new Osella. We're looking at Patrick Tambay, who is 8th, Lauda, who is 9th, Rosberg, who is 10th. Renault, McLaren and Williams, with respectively Renault, Tag and Honda engines. What we don't know, of course, is what compound tyres a lot of the drivers have got, and it's going to be even more critical here at Zolder, which is so demanding on the rubber than it is at almost any other circuit. Tambay, Lauda and Rosberg.
As well, Rosberg, when you consider that we're at a circuit where overtaking is really difficult, from starting bog last, as he did, has come through the field at a quite astonishing rate. He's really flying. I know we've all seen what a great driver he is, and when he gets the adrenaline up, he really goes. But now is the time that it really must be got to watch, because he's just arrived, if you like, at the back end of Division 1. He's now playing in the big league, whereas he was, by and large, passing the Division 2 men. To get to where he is, and things are going to be a little bit tougher. And also his right front tyre to me looks a little bit marked. I only had a glimpse of it then, but that it may be he will have to be careful when charging that hard on these marginal tyres. Then of course it's difficult, and it looked like a bit of a mistake from Lauda there, and Rosberg's taking advantage of it. It's down the inside with the power. There, Lauda made a bit of a mistake, so Rosberg makes up a place. Now let's see how he can deal with Patrick Tambay.
Keke Rosberg, the world champion of 1982, moves up to 9th position ahead of Niki Lauda. Look at it again. He forces through on the inside, holds his position as he goes into the bend, Niki Lauda tries to keep up but has to back off and let Rosberg through, and I think it's not going to be very long before Keke Rosberg in 9th position takes number 15, the Renault of Frenchman Patrick Tambay, ahead of him, and goes up to 8th position from 26th, and this is lap 14, a quite incredible, typical, meteoric, charging drive by Keke Rosberg, who's really reveling now in the extra power that the Honda turbocharged engine's giving him compared with the Ford 3-litre DFV engine which he had up to the end of last season. Tambay 8th, Rosberg 9th, Lauda 10th. And it's still Alboreto leading, Warwick 2nd, Arnoux 3rd, Winkelhock 4th, Piquet 5th, De Angelis 6th, Cheever 7th. And look at this. Keke Rosberg challenging Patrick Tambay, and he forces his way through, obliges Patrick Tambay to take the wide line and goes through and takes 8th position.
Yes, terrific stuff. Well, the extra power of the Honda engine we saw in South Africa, but what we saw there very clearly, this was before that, coming through the corner that made it the chicane, was the extra traction and grip that Rosberg was able to exert, and that would be a tribute both to his chassis and to Goodyear, who are certainly showing that they bounced back. They definitely struggled the first 2 Grand Prix of the year, but and Lauda now having a little bit of a look at Patrick Tambay, but without success that time. But with the Ferraris up in front on their rubber, looking very good indeed, we'll have to obviously weigh this more carefully by the end of the race when we're looking with hindsight to see how well they wore compared with the Michelins, but certainly they're really going very well indeed.
And while you look at this, Nigel Mansell is coming into the pits, and there he is. Nigel Mansell, who was in, at the time, 20th position, so he's dropped down through the field. It's obviously not tyres, because as you can see for yourselves, no jacks, no pneumatic hammers, the wheels aren't coming off, but Mansell is coming out, and he is finished in the Belgian Grand Prix, and it's still led on lap 16 by Alboreto, ahead of Warwick, and he's some 6 seconds now ahead of the Englishman. And in 3rd position, it's still René Arnoux in the 3rd Ferrari, ahead of Manfred Winkelhock in the ATS, and you're looking at the race leader, Michele Alboreto. Now,
I think Warwick's in trouble. I think Arnoux's just passed him. Look now, is this Warwick coming through? I saw him go past. Well, no, it was the back marker. I beg your pardon. No, hang on. That was...
It's the spirit of Mauro Baldi, and we'll take the gap between Michele Alboreto, who crosses the line now, as Derek Warwick comes up to go past, and the gap between Warwick and Alboreto is 6.06 seconds, which is about what it was, and the race positions are held for the first half dozen or so anyway, with 16 laps completed out of 70. There is the race leader, commandingly driving his Ferrari ahead of Warwick 2nd, Arnoux 3rd, Winkelhock 4th, Piquet 5th, and De Angelis 6th.
Yes, apologies for that. I nearly gave myself a heart attack. I thought I'd seen Warwick slow down when we had a glimpse of it. It was Alboreto passing the back marker.
Martin Brundle, that you see the 3rd of this batch, and his teammate Stefan Beloff are in 13th and 14th positions, chasing Andrea De Cesaris, who is 12th. And this is a fascinating battle, because as I said earlier on, the 2 nimble Ford DFV-powered Tyrrells, with their light weight and their softer tyres, are at a much better advantage at Zolder. Mansell's gone out with a clutch problem, and there is Jacques Lafitte. Jacques Lafitte in the Williams, and you can see that he's being pushed off the course, so he's obviously out of the race, getting out of the car to join the other retirees, Riccardo Patrese, Alain Prost, Thierry Boutsen, who came in and has actually now gone back into the race, Nigel Mansell, who has retired, and Jacques Lafitte. Lap 18 out of 70, Alboreto that we're looking at leads, Warwick 2nd, Arnoux 3rd, Winkelhock 4th, Piquet 5th, De Angelis 6th, Eddie Cheever 7th, Keke Rosberg fighting his way through and is now in 8th position, ahead of Tambay 9th and Lauda 10th. Matteo Fabi is 11th, and then there's that battle for 12th position between De Cesaris and the leading 3-litre cars of Stefan Beloff and Brundle, both in Tyrrell. 8.646 seconds, that says, between the race leader, there he is, Michele Alboreto on lap 18, and Derek Warwick in the Renault. Question, is number 27, Michele Alboreto, going to stop to change his Goodyear tyres? We don't know. Ferrari weren't prepared to say just before the race began. We do know that Derek Warwick intends to drive straight through, so if Michele Alboreto there comes into the pits to change his tyres and Warwick is where he is now, the Englishman would certainly take the lead. Patrick Tambay seems to be in trouble in 10th position. He's dropping back. There is Mark Sura in the arrows. There is Derek Warwick in 2nd position. Now watch for René Arnoux in the Scarlet Ferrari. That's the gap, and it's a long, long gap now. There is the Frenchman. And behind him, Winkelhock behind him in 5th position, Piquet. That's Mauro Baldi, who has been lapped. There is De Angelis, chased by Chiva. And De Angelis, number 11, is in 6th position. And you can see that Eddie Chiva there in the green and red V8 Alfa Romeo in 7th place is right with the Italian in the JPS Lotus. They pass Mauro Baldi. It is now lap 19. Phil Alboreto leads. Warwick 2nd. Arnoux 3rd. Ferrari's 1st and 3rd. Winkelhock chasing Arnoux 4th. Piquet 5th. De Angelis 6th. Chiva 7th. Rosberg 8th. You're watching the battle between Elio De Angelis and Eddie Chiva for 6th position. JPS Lotus leads Alfa Romeo. Italian leads American. Some 650 horsepower under their right foot. All these drivers. And did you see Keke Rosberg coming into the picture? As Boutsen comes into the pits again, Keke Rosberg in 8th position is gaining hand over fist on Elio De Angelis, who is 6th, and Chiva, who is 7th. We're seeing as great a drive from Keke Rosberg in this Belgian Grand Prix as we saw from Alain Prost in the South African Grand Prix. Now there is Rosberg. The third of these 3 cars is Keke Rosberg in 8th position. Remember, Alain Prost drove from 26th to 2nd in South Africa. Keke Rosberg has already driven from 26th to 8th, and he's going to move up further still.
Yeah, I must take issue with that, Murray, in that we're seeing a truly great drive from Keke Rosberg here, and in fairness, all Prost did was sit in the best car in the race and just steer it through the traffic, because in South Africa, overtaking is very easy, and he did a very, very good job with the car he got, but he didn't do anything special. But this is special, what we're seeing from Rosberg. This is really something. On a circuit where you can't overtake, he's absolutely flying. He's already pulled 8 seconds on Niki Lauda, and he could really be challenging for the front if he can keep this going, as long as he's looked after his tyres and everything.
The interesting thing is going to be what is the gap between Warwick and Rosberg, because if it's closing and Rosberg can get ahead of these 2 cars in front of him, it's more than conceivable that the Finnish driver will be able to challenge Michele Alboreto before the race is over. And I'll tell you that the gap at the present minute between Warwick in 2nd place and Rosberg is 22 seconds, as Boutsen's car is definitely pushed into the pits and out of the race. And there are the 6th, 7th and 8th men. De Angelis in the JPS Lotus, Chiva just to the right of your picture, and Keke Rosberg that you're looking at. De Angelis 6th, Chiva 7th, Rosberg 8th. And Rosberg is really harrying Eddie Chiva now for 7th position. He's come up on this very demanding circuit from the last place on the grid to 8th position.
Yes, he's got one particularly good place each lap, and that's the chicane immediately before the pits, which they're coming to. They've got this hairpin now, little kink, and then the corner where his car seems to have... But look at his right front tyre. His right front tyre would appear certainly to be very scuffed, if not blistered. So what we may see is the end at some stage of Rosberg's run. But of course, remember, he'll have another set in the pits waiting for him, and this time he didn't get the speed through there. He appeared to lose ground, and that was his specialist spot. Let's watch him for another lap. But I think that Rosberg might just be running into front tyre troubles, which would be a crime. Now, that is where the right front gets a big lean, and he certainly wasn't quick through that one.
And the gap is increasing between Warwick and Rosberg. Warwick, who is second, and Niki Rosberg, who is eighth. It's now 23 seconds, but it's because De Angelis and Chiva are holding the fin up. The position now on lap 22, as Rosberg again challenges, and this time goes through. Keke Rosberg takes Chiva, who fights back, but Rosberg slams the door in his face, and he's gone up to 7th position. And now, on lap 22, it is still Alboreto leading, Warwick second, Arnoux third, Winkelhock fourth, Piquet fifth, De Angelis sixth, Rosberg seventh, Chiva eighth.
And here we see it again. Now, Rosberg came through on the outside for the next corner, and they had really quite a scrap. I think Chiva was retaliating in a situation where he really was beaten. Seemed a bit unnecessary, but still, it was made jolly good entertainment, and both drivers emerged unscathed. Rosberg was well clear. He got it right out of the previous corner. They would out-accelerate him. So now, can Rosberg look after his tyres enough to keep this stunning performance going? But I think he's struggling a bit now. He doesn't seem to have quite the same superiority in grip and handling that he had 10 laps ago, or even 5 laps ago.
And behind this great battle for 6th, 7th and 8th positions, Martin Brundle has moved ahead of his Tyrrell teammate Stefan Bellof to 14th position. Nigel Mansell, you know, is out of the race. Jonathan Palmer in the Ram with its Hart engine is in 18th position in the race.
Now, if I was Rosberg and if I was in tyre trouble, I think, unless there was a good reason not to, I'd go to the pits right now, because he's stuck in traffic, so he's not going to gain any ground. And if he puts on his new tyres now, he'll come out with the back markers again, who are easier to pass than the front men, and he has a very good chance that he'll be passing the front men while they're in the pits, so he won't have to physically overtake them. And I think that if he's thinking as well as he's driving, unless, as I say, he's got a factor which I don't know about, which is quite possible, that says to him that he can't come into the pits yet, but I think now would definitely be the time for Rosberg to come with his obvious right front tyre trouble.
And there's Piquet, has moved up to 4th position, ahead of Winkelhock and just behind René Arnoux. So Nelson Piquet, who had a pretty dreadful practice because he qualified in 9th position, which is very low for him, has now moved up ahead of Manfred Winkelhock into 4th place. Piquet in the Brabham BMW, and you're looking at Winkelhock in the ATS BMW. And there is Piquet chasing René Arnoux for 3rd position. Arnoux 3rd, Piquet 4th, Winkelhock is in 5th position. Then it's De Angelis, then it's Rosberg 7th and Eddie Chiva 8th. And Michele Alboreto, of course, is still some 6 seconds ahead of Derek Warwick on lap 24 in 2nd position. Piquet there, 4th place. And it looks as though Winkelhock has got some sort of problem. Maybe his tyres are going off. Meantime, Stefan Bellof, who's having a terrific scrap for 13th place with Martin Brundle, has regained that position. So the Englishman in the Tyrrell's gone down 1 place, and Jonathan Palmer is still in 18th position. Lap 25. Alboreto leads, Warwick second. This is the battle for 3rd. Ferrari versus Brabham, Arnoux versus Piquet, Frenchman versus Brazilian. And Piquet's definitely gaining. Look at this! Superb! Nelson Piquet on lap 25 takes René Arnoux and third position, and the Frenchman is dropping back, and now they're all closing up, because with Piquet to third position, with Arnoux fourth, Winkelhock fifth.
Yeah, so that was just a marvellous piece of opportunist overtaking from Nelson Piquet. Very brave, too. Piquet, for all his great skills and everything, and the very few mistakes he makes, got plenty of bravery as well. He's really charging. And that is Warwick in the pits. Tambay?
Patrick Tambay in the pits, the first of the lead drivers, or the drivers who are within the first dozen, to change his tyres. Getting up to racing speed, Patrick Tambay, and the way to tell the Frenchman's Renault from Derek Warwick's, because the helmets look the same, that Tambay's car has a red flash on the rear tail, on the tail, and Derek Warwick has a blue. And Keke Rosberg now is right up with Manfred Winkelhock, who is in fifth position, as into the pits comes René Arnoux in third position. And they were changing cars in practice this morning in 7 seconds, and it looks as though they're not going to do it this time. Arnoux, who was in fourth position, having just been taken by Nelson Piquet, is having a very slow pit stop. It should only take about 8 seconds at the most from stationary to moving again, and that was a 19-second pit stop. It will have lost René Arnoux quite a few places. He rejoins on lap 26, the order being Michele Alboreto leading. Warwick is in second place. Up to third position now was Nelson Piquet. So now to fourth is Winkelhock, chased by Rosberg, Chiva, De Angelis and Niki Lauda. With out of the race, Riccardo Patrese, Prost, Boutsen, Mansell and Lafitte. René Arnoux, having rejoined the circuit after his pit stop for tires. On his own on the circuit. Where he is in relation to the others, I don't know until the rest of them come through at the end of the lap. But he's obviously lost a good few places, but is still his teammate Michele Alboreto in the lead. Now, I say again, there is Alboreto. I say again, don't forget that Alboreto may be coming in to change tyres, and I think the may is much more likely to be almost certainly now that we've seen Arnoux come in. It seems unlikely to me that the Ferraris will be racing on different compounds, one of which would last longer than the other, and if they were, I wouldn't have expected Alboreto to be in the lead by as much as he was. And if Alboreto here in the lead on lap 28 out of 70 does come in to change his Michelin his Goodyear tyres, and there is De Angelis walking in, that means to say that Derek Warwick would take the lead. My apologies, it looked like De Angelis, it is not. It is Francois Hainaut, the Frenchman, the Ligier driver in his first season of Grand Prix racing, and that's a Williams parked by the side of the circuit there. Lafitte's car that you saw go out of the race some time ago, being pushed by the marshals. Now here is Alboreto. As we look at Michele Alboreto on lap 28 out of 70, he leads from Derek Warwick second. In third position, Nelson Piquet. In fourth position, Keke Rosberg. In fifth place, it is Eddie Chiva. In sixth position now, it is Manfred Winkelhock. And in seventh place, Elio De Angelis. Eighth is Niki Lauda. In ninth position was Francois Hainaut, who is now out of the race, which means to say that Stefan Belov is ninth and Martin Brundle is in 10th position, and the Tyrrells could move up further in the race order before this race finishes. You're watching Michele Alboreto in the lead on lap 29. There is Derek Warwick second. Closing up on Mauro Baldi in the Spirit, who is in 17th position. Lauda going to let Derek Warwick through? Yes.
Well, if we thought Rosberg was in tire trouble, maybe I'll have to eat my words, because he's been catching Nelson Piquet pretty fast, and he's now very much in striking distance, challenging Piquet for third place.
2 seconds between them, and that is Cheever. Eddie Cheever out of the race in his Alfa Romeo, and the American was in 5th position. Oh, very unhappy Eddie Cheever. He had a dreadful season with Renault last year. He had an enormous number of retirements. He moved to Alfa Romeo in the hope that things would improve. And as you notice from his gestures, he is obviously a very frustrated man, and justifiably so, as the marshals. And by the way, there are 46 British marshals here today from the British Racing and Sports Car Club, from Brands Hatch. And they are a welcome addition to the Belgian marshals. And Eddie Cheever, unconcerned about that. That chap in the background doesn't seem to be very concerned about anything as Cheever walks past him. Well, lap 30 now. There's Piquet, and look at Rosberg. This is the battle now for 3rd position on the 30th lap, and Keke Rosberg in the Williams Honda has come through from 26th and last position at the beginning of the race to an incredible 4th place on this Zolder circuit, which is renowned to be not only one of the hardest there is on cars, but one of the hardest of all to pass on. And Rosberg has passed, 22 people. Alboreto leads, Warwick second. This is the battle for 3rd between world champion Nelson Piquet in the Brabham BMW and the 1982 world champion Keke Rosberg in the Williams Honda.
Yes, I'm just trying to have a look at the right front tyre on Rosberg's car, and I think it looks as if, obviously I said it was either scuffing or blistering before. If it's blistering, it doesn't clear up, and the tyre is damaged and doesn't recover. But it looks now this is where we get the best shot of it, and we hope we do. No, we did. Yes, it's still scuffed across half the face, from the inside shoulder to halfway across the tread width, and which I think is an improved situation. It was more scuffed in the middle before, and sometimes as the tyre wears, it takes the scuffing off and recovers again. And this, I think, is what would appear to have happened with Keke, and he's going absolutely fine. He's having a look down the inside now, but he wasn't quite right. Coming into that corner at something like 150 to 160 miles an hour, despite what a short straight it is before that. So he's got to get everything absolutely right before you start doing anything too fanciful there.
Into the pits comes Niki Lauda in 7th position. Start the stopwatch. 7 seconds is what it was taking them to change 4 tyres and wheels in practice. Up go the hammers, off goes Lauda. 9.6 seconds. A very good pit stop in racing conditions. We rejoin to see Piquet holding off Keke Rosberg, who is 4th. And the gap between Warwick, who is 2nd, and Piquet and Rosberg is still 23 seconds. So Alboreto is holding his 1st place from Warwick, and Warwick is holding his 2nd place from these 2.
Mary, I should explain what you said about racing conditions, because people at home probably don't realise how important that is. When these teams practice pit stops with the car in the pits and in the garage, everything is cold, and it's much easier to do. You don't get things stuck on. When the brakes are right by the wheels, but the actual temperature of the metal in the wheels is probably anything up to 200 degrees centigrade. And the same with the hubs, and the tyres are running at something like, about 240 degrees Fahrenheit on their tread. So everything in that area is absolutely red hot, and it makes it very difficult to handle for the mechanics, and of course the big chance of things getting jammed on, because there are different metals used in the wheels, and so sometimes they expand at different rates, and therefore cause jamming. So it's very, very different doing it in racing conditions than knocking off 6.5, 7-second stops in the garage.
The battle between Piquet and Rosberg for 3rd position. And whilst we watch this, think on this, the incredible Tyrrells of Stefan Belloff and Martin Brundle. The unsponsored Tyrrells are now up to 8th and 10th positions, although Martin Brundle seems to be slowing a bit. Lap 33, just about half distance.
And I think, was that Piquet making a mistake? It was indeed. Piquet went wide at the hairpin, slid off, lost traction, and he's let Rosberg through. And that's a terrible mistake by Piquet, because I don't think he's going to catch Keke now. He's been hounding him for several laps. That was probably caused by the pressure. I say it was a terrible mistake. It was a mistake that cost him his place for the time being. I think Keke would have got him later, but probably because he was fighting Keke's superior speed, he just overstepped the mark a tiny bit. And that puts Keke Rosberg up into 3rd place, and he's got something like 20 seconds or a little bit more to close on Derek Warwick. So now we're just going to have to sit back for a couple of laps, put a watch on it, and see how he gets on. Bearing in mind, of course, that Keke hasn't yet stopped, and that Derek Warwick is planning not to stop, but I suspect, or rather, if I was asked to hazard a guess, I would say that that was rather ambitious, and I think there's a very good chance that he will end up stopping. I think he's favourite to stop. But Piquet, I think, is going steadily. I think it's just that Rosberg is absolutely flying.
And Keke Rosberg is now up with Tombe as Warwick comes into the pit in 2nd position. This we did not expect. This is lap 34. Derek Warwick stops. Remember that Piquet's his pit stop was about 9.6 seconds. How is the Renault team going to compare? Well, 2 seconds longer. Warwick rushes out of the pit, and he's going to be bearing in mind the fact that he's got to work up to racing speed on cold tyres now. It means to say that Rosberg in 3rd position is going to close on him, with Piquet behind him in 4th position. And
I think I saw Rosberg just slip through. There is Rosberg, yes. And Rosberg slipped through we just saw him go by as Derek was coming out of the pit. But bear in mind, of course, that Rosberg still has to make his stop, and that Derek now is on fresh rubber.
And this is where the race is really going to come alive, and we may well get a lot of changes, because as you can see, drivers are into the pits. That is Winkelhock, who was in 5th position, has come into the pits for a very long pit stop. I'm not aware of his team having done much practice, and it certainly showed there in comparison with the Brabham, the Renault and the other teams. And there is Tombe, and Tombe, having come in, is well down in 15th position. And now on lap 34, it is still in the lead Alboreto, 2nd is still Warwick, 3rd, as you know, is Keke Rosberg, 4th is Piquet, 5th De Angelis, 6th Winkelhock, 7th De Cesaris, 8th Belloff, 9th Farby, 10th Brundle, 11th Arnoux, and in 12th position Niki Lauda. Keke Rosberg now up, of course, into 2nd place. We just caught a glimpse of him passing Derek Warwick, and the incredible world champion of 1982, the Finn, Keke Rosberg, has moved from 26th to 2nd place in 34 laps. And that's just under half distance. We are now on the half distance, lap 35 in this 70-lap race.
Yes, despite the fact that Keke's tyre right front seems to be all right, I still in a way stand by the tactical comment that I made, and I really think he should stop now. I don't think there's any future for him soldiering round out there, unless of course he's trying to do the race without, and there's always that possibility. But if he's not, it would be tactically wrong, I think, because worn rubber is not as fast as fresh rubber. Warwick's got fresh rubber on. He's got it warm now. He'll be getting the hang of the track, and Keke might as well get in and get it over and done with, and get out and get racing on some fresh rubber where he can lap quicker. But he's still, if he has stopped, he'll still have a big deficit to chase Warwick from behind.
And you're looking at Theo Farby, who is in 8th position and is being caught by Michele Alboreto, the race leader. And he's lapped everybody, therefore, up to 8th position. He's now lapped everybody up to 7th position, and there is Martin Brundle behind Theo Fabi. Lap 36, just over half distance, and number 27 in the red Ferrari, Michele Alboreto, who has led from the time the lights went to green, is still in the lead. And off, incredible, off goes Alboreto. Now that could mean that his tyres are greening and are going off, and that Alboreto will have to come into the pits in the lead.
I want another look at the back of his car, because as he drove away at least, I thought I saw something possibly hanging on the rear suspension. Now look at him, sides wide, he gets onto the slippery stuff. Now he's bumped over the curb there, and that could have damaged his bottom right rear wishbone. Now as the picture clears, now have a look by his right. No, it's an optical illusion. I think it looked solid, or what I thought was something off wasn't. So let's hope he doesn't damage it. Now he still has enough of a lead that he could get into the pits and get out again, but even before Rosberg arrives, who we imagine is going to stop himself. And he's got a huge lead on Derek Warwick of over 50 seconds, or approximately 50 seconds, before he went and lost a bit of time there, but it wouldn't be more than a couple of seconds. So let's have a look, see if he's heading up towards the pit entrance right now. He's not bothering to go in, he's staying out for another lap, at least another lap. We don't know. Ferrari were very unforthcoming about what the tyres they were running, and we don't really know whether he's running a compound that he thinks he'll be able to do the race on or not, although I would somehow doubt it with his when one saw his early speed. I don't think that could have been a very hard compounded tyre.
We've made some remarks about the fact that the Goodyear tyres weren't as good as the Michelin this year. Well, that certainly isn't the case in this race, because Alboreto, of course, is on the Goodyear tyre. He's led all the way. This is lap 37. You're looking at the race leader, Alboreto, who's got a substantial lead over Keke Rosberg, who is in 2nd place in the Williams Honda. And in fact, the exact lead is 43.8 seconds. So Rosberg is actually gaining on Alboreto. And don't forget that it could well be that Alboreto has got some sort of tyre problem. In 2nd place is Keke Rosberg. In 3rd position, it is Derek Warwick. In 4th position, it is Nelson Piquet. 5th is Elio De Angelis. 6th now, listen to this, is Stefan Beloff in the Tyrrell. In 7th position, it is Theo Fabi. In 8th position, it is Brundle. And there is Brundle in 8th position, who is about to be lapped by the race leader, Michele Alboreto. The Tyrrells are really coming up through the field, as Ken Tyrrell prophesied they would. He said if there is one circuit where the Tyrrells are going to do really well this year with their problem of much less powerful engines, it is Zolder, because their nimbleness and their lightness really suits this circuit. So, Michele Alboreto in the lead Ferrari, now on lap 39, leading Keke Rosberg and closing up on Martin Brundle in 8th position, and Stefan Beloff, the West German driver in the 2nd of the unsponsored Tyrrells, is in 6th place and in the World Championship points table. Alboreto. That's Arnoux, of course, is a lap behind. And Brundle being ever increasingly caught, not surprisingly, by Alboreto, as Theo Fabi goes through in the Brabham. And Brundle is right with Fabi, who is 7th.
Now there comes Alboreto. Finally, and at last, Alboreto has come into the pit. And I was just about to say, I thought probably he wasn't coming, because I cannot see the logic in the thinking of anybody in this day and age stopping after half distance, which we've already passed. We'll watch his pit stop, then I'll explain why. We're on lap 40. Let's have a look-see. We're already getting up towards the 10 seconds and past, but that's not bad. Anything well, anything close to 10 seconds is pretty good in this day and age. And anyway, let's face it, Alboreto's got an awful lot of time to play with. But I'll explain that. It's not clever. You're not saving anything up by stopping after half distance. The reasons for this are two. Your tyre wear in the first half of the race is much greater, and the stress on the tyres, than that in the second half of the race. And that for two reasons. First of all, because the cars are much heavier, they're full of fuel, and by half distance they've used half of it, which makes an enormous weight difference, a percentage weight difference in the car. And secondly, that the track picks up rubber as the tyres wear it out and lay it down on the track, and it becomes what we call softer, which means that it's less abrasive to the tyres anyway, and in fact stickier. And there's Rosberg just diving past one of the tail enders there, lapping another car, and still soldiering on. Now he hasn't changed. Therefore, the tyres are going to wear a lot faster in the first half of the race. Why not come in at 1/3 distance instead of half distance? Because also, when you put the new set on, they work better. And so I seriously question the judgment of teams to bring their drivers in after half distance. It makes not the slightest sense to me.
Dr. Jonathan Palmer being caught and passed and lapped by Keke Rosberg, who had closed the gap between himself and Michele Alboreto to 21 seconds as Alboreto drove out of the pits. A bit misleading that, actually, because don't forget that Rosberg has not been in for tyres, and as far as we know, it was the Williams team's intention to bring him in. And Jonathan Palmer is in 15th position now. We are on lap 41, and another 30 laps to go. And so it's Alboreto leading, Rosberg second, Derek Warwick is third now, Nelson Piquet is fourth, De Angelis is fifth, Beloff is sixth, Barbie is seventh, and Brundle is eighth.
Well, with Frank in charge of judgment, one has to presume that Keke isn't coming in for tyres, because otherwise he wouldn't come in so late. And that's Winkelhock limping down slowly. It looks mechanical, I think his engine or something like that, and he looks like that's the end of his day's work. And Niki Lauda, we hear, stopped with a broken engine.
So that means to say that both the World Championship leaders are out of the race. Alain Prost long since, and now Niki Lauda. Indeed, the retirements are building up.
It must be a tactical ploy by the Williams team, by Frank then, because I see the Williams mechanics getting ready, just looking across at the pit road. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's coming in, because these teams nowadays, they stay in a state of readiness throughout the race, but you can look down at them and you see them getting sort of specially ready if they're expecting the driver in, obviously, and there's the whole area is cleared and ready. So I think maybe Keke's coming in. So there may be some special tactical reason for Frank to make this a late pit stop, but Keke's actually stayed out for one more lap because he's just gone past us.
Out went the signal board with a signal I don't understand on it. But on lap 42 now, it is still Alboreto leading. It is still Keke Rosberg in second place. It is still Derek Warwick in third, ahead of Nelson Piquet, who is fourth.
See, with the swap of tyres, whereas Rosberg was catching Derek Warwick when he wasn't having traffic problems before the pit stop, since the pit stop, Warwick has kept the gap constant, which means that relatively Warwick is now going faster. And the reason he's going faster is because he's got new tyres on. So why has Rosberg not gone in a lot earlier and put his on, so he'd be going faster still?
Elio De Angelis is right up to Derek Warwick there. And Derek Warwick, number 16, is in third position. So, lap 42 completed by the leader, Alboreto. Keke Rosberg, we're wondering whether he's going to be coming in for tyres as Tombay goes through, chased by De Angelis. Still Warwick third, still Piquet fourth, still De Angelis fifth, and there he is. Beloff right with De Angelis. Stefan Beloff in sixth position in the Tyrrell. There he is chasing De Angelis, and he ducks behind De Angelis as the Roman tucks into the left-hander there, and you could well be seeing a change for fifth position shortly. Look at this. De Angelis in the black and gold JPS Lotus, and in the black, red and yellow Tyrrell, Stefan Beloff. He's in the World Championship points at the moment. 1 point for sixth position, which is where he is if he finished there. But he's obviously determined to do better than that, harrying Elio De Angelis, fifth position. Ahead of De Angelis, Piquet, fourth. Warwick, third. Rosberg, second. Alboreto lead.
Yes, terrible struggle for Beloff, though, because with the power disadvantage that he's got, which is quite considerable, he just loses so much ground on the straight. To make it up under braking really is just not really on. He has to catch it up all in the corners, by which time it's too late because the car in front just squirts it and disappears again down the straight. So it's a real problem for him to pass anybody.
The car ahead of these two is Patrick Tambay, the Frenchman, in the second of the two Renaults. He's in 12th place, a lap adrift, the leaders. And into the pits now comes Keke Rosberg for his anticipated pit stop in second place on lap 44. Patrick Head bends over. The car designer speaks briefly to Keke Rosberg. The hammers hammer, the wheels come off. Keke Rosberg sits impassively there. It's a rather longish pit stop compared with some of the others. 15.7 seconds. The Honda turbo engine rumbles as Rosberg drives out, and he should still be in second position. Alboreto leading has made his tyre stop. Rosberg in second has made his tyre stop. Warwick has made his tyre stop. Piquet is in fourth position. De Angelis fifth, Beloff sixth, right with the JPS Lotus. And here's Rosberg up to racing speed, chased by Senna. That's René Arnoux, and I don't know which car that is. One pulling off to the side, looks like a Ligier, and one tucked into the side with fire marshals running. Obviously the fire extinguishers have been used. That creates a cloud of extinguisher foam.
Well, there seemed to have been an accident. That tyre wall is all torn apart, and it's on the other side of the track. So that's one car who may have hit it. It looks damaged the way it was meant to be. There was a car off on the left of the track. So it looks, anyway, as if there's been some sort of accident there. Although, judging from the way the tyre walls, I would think it's just a bounce off. And the fire extinguisher is probably more precautionary than a fire. Well, as I say, what I can see at a glance, it doesn't look too serious.
And it looks to me like one of the Ligiers which has gone off, in which case it must be De Cesaris with Arnoux already out of the race, but we don't know that for certain and we'll confirm as soon as we can. That's Martin Brundle in 8th position in the blue car. Now we look at Rosberg. Brundle is right up with Arnoux, who is 7th behind Beloff, who is 6th, De Angelis 5th, Piquet 4th, Warwick 3rd, and Rosberg in 2nd position. The leader, Michele Alboreto, the lap 45. Jonathan Palmer in the Ram with its Hart turbo engine into the pits for a change of his Pirelli tyres. Palmer just qualified. He had all sorts of problems in the practice period. His teammate Philippe Alliot failed to qualify because he had a broken turbo in the very last stages of practice. And as you can see, there looks like a problem with the left front and the right front. They can't get the nut on, and poor Jonathan must be fuming with frustration there as he sits in the...
Terwijl Palmer daar enorm veel tijd verliest. Bijna 40 seconden. Niet verwonderlijk in een team dat het met zeer weinig geld moet doen. Met een minimum aan middelen. En dat laat zich in alle aspecten van de Formule 1 racerij gevoelen als je geen geld hebt. Alboreto, de leider. Volgens de laatste stand die we hier doorgekregen hebben, zou hij 28 seconden voorsprong hebben op Derek Warwick, de tweede. Nelson Piquet is derde, Elio De Angelis vierde, Stefan Beloff nu al vijfde en zesde Keke Rosberg. 7e Arnoux. 8e Martin Brundle. 9e Marc Zoerer. 10e Patrick Tambay. 11e Ayrton Senna. 12e Theo Fabi. En 13e staat hier nog genoteerd Andrea de Cesaris, maar voor die is de wedstrijd afgelopen. Als we mogen afgaan op de beelden die we daarnet gezien hebben. Alboreto, die zich voorlopig weinig zorgen hoeft te maken. U krijgt het nog eens op schrift. Alboreto gevolgd op bijna 30 seconden door Derek Warwick. Alboreto heeft nog altijd de snelste ronde op zijn naam. Die heeft hij in het begin van de wedstrijd gereden toen hij de baan nog vrij voor zich had. Nu wordt het al moeilijker om een snelle ronde te maken, omdat er veel wagens moeten gedubbeld worden. Derek Warwick, de tweede, die nu de sterrenwachtbocht ingaat. Een uitstekende race in elk geval van Derek Warwick. Terwijl Stefan Bellof, die op de 5e plaats ligt, nog altijd in de slipstream van Elio De Angelis hangt. Die zijn dus aan het vechten om de 4e plaats. Kijk, Rosberg, 6e. We gaan eens kijken of hij nog een keer kan terugkomen. Heeft nu meer dan een minuut achterstand op de leider, Michele Alboreto. Marc Zoerer en Stefan Bellof. Zoerer wordt gedubbeld, is net gedubbeld door De Angelis. En nu moet Bellof dat nog doen. Zoerer, de ploegmaat van Boutsen, die vandaag nog met een Cosworth motor moest rijden, omdat er nog niet genoeg motoren voorhanden zijn om de 2 wagens te bevoorraden. Boutsen kreeg de primeur, waarschijnlijk omdat hij in eigen land reed. Maar ook gedeeltelijk omdat hij een streepje voor heeft bij teammanager Jackie Oliver. Elio De Angelis ziet u daar rijden. En dit zijn Zoerer en Bellof. Bellof geraakt maar niet voorbij Zoerer. Dat geeft De Angelis de gelegenheid om wat voorsprong te nemen. De sacramentshelling. Daarachter zag u Keke Rosberg rijden. De man op de 6e plaats. En dan René Arnoux, 7e. Dit is Ayrton Senna. Martin Brundle. Senna en Brundle waren de nummers 1 en 2 in het Brits Formule 3 kampioenschap. En Brundle werd gerecruiteerd door Ken Tyrrell. Een man die een voorliefde heeft voor jonge talentrijke rijders. Geeft ze de kans om hun carrière te beginnen. Niet in ideale omstandigheden weliswaar, maar toch altijd met een wagen die betrouwbaar is. We krijgen de stand te zien na 49 ronden. Alboreto, Wark op bijna 29 seconden. Nelson Piquet, de wereldkampioen, op 48,5 seconden. Dan de Italiaan Elio De Angelis met zijn Lotus op 55 seconden. Stefan Bellof met zijn Cosworth motor op bijna 1 minuut. En hij wordt van dichtbij gevolgd door Keke Rosberg. Alboreto hebben we in beeld. Alboreto, geboren op 23 december 56. Relatief jong nog voor een Formule 1-rijder. Reed zijn eerste grote prijs in 1981, de grote prijs van San Marino. Is aan zijn 44e grote prijs bezig. Een strijd tussen Rosberg en Arnoux. Voor de 6e plaats is dat. En daarvoor hangt Bellof, de 5e. En aangezien Bellof zo wat 200 pk minder heeft in zijn motor, zal die waarschijnlijk het oog moeten buigen voor Rosberg en Arnoux. Arnoux in de slipstream van Rosberg. En hier zien we De Angelis en Bellof passeren. Rosberg neemt wat voorsprong op Arnoux nu. En naar het einde toe zal het bijzonder spannend worden om te zien wie nog genoeg benzine heeft terwijl Martin Brundle binnenkomt. Martin Brundle lag op de 8e plaats. Zal hij nu moeten afstaan aan Patrick Tambay. Rosberg, Arnoux. Jagend op Stefan Bellof. En we gaan daar wellicht een soort hergroepering krijgen. Een groepje van 4 wagens. De Angelis, Bellof, Rosberg en Arnoux. Maar Stefan Bellof verdedigt zich schitterend. Ook een man boordevol talent, die Bellof. BMW, de firma die de turbomotoren aan het team van Thierry Boutsen levert aan Arrows, had graag Bellof in de plaats van Boutsen achter het stuur van een Arrows met turbomotor gezien. Maar Jackie Oliver wilde daar niet van weten. Terwijl Rosberg daar even in de fout ging.
I say that in the hope that I can eat. Brundle, I was about to say Brundle and hoped desperately that it wasn't, but it's Brundle Tyrrell out of the race He was in 8th position, having driven a superb race before he went in for his tyres, and it may well be, and I'm guessing, that Martin Brundle started going a bit too quick on cold tyres and he's gone off. But the fact that he's out of the cockpit is a good sign, as Arnoux now is right with the 6th place man, Keke Rosberg. And De Angelis 4th and Belloff 5th seem to be pulling away from this battle for 6th position between the white Williams Honda of Keke Rosberg and the scarlet Ferrari of Keke Rosberg. Look at the gap that's increasing. Rosberg, of course, will be trying desperately to ensure that Arnoux does not get past him. In the process, he's losing a bit of time, and Belloff is succeeding in pulling away in the non-turbo Tyrrell as they pass the 2 stricken cars on the right and left. Rosberg 6th, Arnoux 7th. Alboreto leads, Warwick 2nd, Piquet 3rd, De Angelis 4th, Belloff 5th. Tournay is 8th and has been lapped, and the leader has lapped everybody therefore up to René Arnoux, his teammate, who is in 7th position, and there he is.
Yes, it's amazing to see the difference in Rosberg since his pit stop as how he was going before. The obvious thought is that he's gone onto a different compound, probably a softer one, in the hope of going faster, and for some reason it's not working as well. But there are other possibilities. I mean, even if changing onto an identical compound of tires, as Arnoux fights his way through, Rosberg definitely struggling on the handling, but Arnoux makes it through into 6th place, into a point-scoring position at the expense of Keke Rosberg. Here we see it again. And Rosberg just squeezed through under braking corner after the pit. But he's been threatening to do that for some laps. But in fact, you can put on an identical compound of tyre in every way, and it just doesn't match up. This can change the handling of the car quite a lot. For example, these tyres expand with centrifugal force as they go, and it makes them expand differently. You've got to match the set first, otherwise they don't work.
And René Arnoux has now passed Stefan Belloff and is therefore up into 5th place. The Frenchman is charging in the Ferrari. There is Brundle's car being lifted off the circuit, and I think it's at the Bianchi bend, which is where Alan Jones went off in the lead some years ago in his Williams. And Keke Rosberg does not seem to be able to do anything at all about the battle in front of him. And now Arnoux is taking De Angelis and 4th position. So Arnoux has gone from 7th to 4th position very, very quickly indeed. And he's now got Piquet, Warwick and his teammate Alboreto in front of him as Keke Rosberg gets ahead of Belloff and ahead of De Angelis. A sweeping left-right by Rosberg takes him up behind René Arnoux.
That was marvellous opportunism by Keke Rosberg. Here we are, we've got it again. They're all coming. He's got the advantage, obviously, over the Ford-powered Tyrrell car, but he nips in between them. De Angelis is looking the wrong way. He sees that, and he nips down the inside. De Angelis was expecting him to come on the right, and that was just terrific stuff.
So now, on lap 56, it is Alboreto in the lead, Warwick 2nd, Piquet in 3rd position, Arnoux in 4th position and pulling away. In 5th position, Rosberg. In 6th position is De Angelis, there he is. And in 7th place is Stefan Belloff. 8th is Tournay, 1 lap adrift. 9th is Senna in the Toleman. 10th is Mark Surer in the Arrows. 11th now is Mauro Baldi in the Spirit, and that's the highest he's been since he changed teams this year. And in 12th position now, Jonathan Palmer in the Ram Hart. Palmer is 5 laps down, but never mind, he is in 12th position. Rosberg, De Angelis and Belloff. And Michele Alboreto then in the lead, René Arnoux in 4th position. That's going to give them vital points for the Constructors' Championship, and it's going to raise their tails for the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola next weekend. There is only 1 week between the Belgian and the San Marino.
Yes, and there's one major disadvantage about it, Murray. It's going to make an extra 4 hours getting in and out of the circuit for us. There's another 100,000 Italians flock to come and gloat.
Yes, I think we can take it, though. There is Arnoux.
Hang on, the BBC producer just said I'll get you a helicopter. I hope everybody heard in front of witnesses. We've got a helicopter, Murray. Great.
And that is Michele Alboreto, the race leader, lap 58. 70-lap race. Alboreto must. Well, I'm accused of putting a curse on drivers when I say he must finish in this position because then they immediately retire. But surely Michele Alboreto must win the Belgian Grand Prix, provided he keeps going as he is going. Derek Warwick is charging behind him. That's Tombé's Renault. There is Arnoux. Both of them, of course, have been caught. There is Alboreto again, and you can see the very distinctive lines of the Ferrari C4, and I'll give you the gap between the race leader, Michele Alboreto, and the second place man, Derek Warwick. It was 37 seconds last time we took it. So, as James has said, Alboreto can coast home virtually, provided he just keeps going, because even Derek Warwick, determined as he is not going to close that gap. And by the way, what a super race Derek Warwick has driven. He led in Brazil until a broken front suspension put him out. He finished third in South Africa, and now he's in this position in the Belgian Grand Prix in second place. The gap between Warwick in second place and Alboreto, the leader, is 43 seconds. But nevertheless, Derek Warwick is on his way to 6 points to add to the 4 that he's got already. And that would help him up into second place in the championship table, because Niki Lauda has only got 9, and the unfortunate Mauro Baldi joins the retirees in the Belgian Grand Prix on lap 59. His Spirit part is out of the running, and Arnoux is catching Nelson Piquet. Now, I hope we'll be able to see this, because Arnoux really has got a new lease of life. It's most interesting to see the positions of the drivers in the teams, because Michele Alboreto is certainly the dominant driver in the Ferrari team this year, and Arnoux won't like that one little bit, and will be doing everything he can in this race to close the psychological gap between himself and the Italian. And of course, if Alboreto, an Italian in an Italian Ferrari, wins here at Belgium, the joy of the Italian tifosi at San Marino at Imola next weekend is going to be beyond bounds. There he goes, the race leader, lap 60. Warwick second, Piquet third, with Arnoux right behind him. Rosberg is fifth, De Angelis is sixth, Beloff is seventh. Those are the 7 drivers on the same lap. And look at this, Piquet and Arnoux together. And Piquet is third, Arnoux is fourth. Is Piquet going to move over? I very much doubt it. Arnoux, he's not going to get round there.
Yes, well, Arnoux's really going like a train now. His tyres seem to be working very well indeed, and he's suddenly got his car working like his teammate Alboreto up front. Caught Piquet very fast, and despite all his skill, I don't think that Piquet is going to be able to hold off Arnoux's not inconsiderable skill in a car that's obviously working very much better. But he does have a lot of speed on the straight. That Brabham is very slippery, and the BMW engine is very powerful.
We're on lap 61. Nelson Piquet, the world champion. And Arnoux goes right up alongside and forces Nelson Piquet to one side and moves up into third position on this, the 61st lap. Look at it again. Round the fast left-hander, Arnoux moves to the right, gets the inside line for the right-hander that follows, Surprisingly, Nelson Piquet did not attempt to close the door, and Arnoux goes through and Piquet fights back.
And you see Rosberg still very much in the background there. He's very much in touch. He's only 2 or 3 seconds behind that pair. Therefore, if Piquet's in a bit of trouble or having to start to conserve fuel, he's under serious threat from Keke Rosberg. Now, this incidentally is what you see now is an intelligence test. It's an intelligence test for René Arnoux, because is he going to go charging on? Obviously, he's got to get away and get a little bit of comfort and space himself in front of Piquet, or is he going to try and hold his engine back to conserve fuel over the last few laps? He's got 10 laps to go or thereabouts, and obviously he won't be able to slow right down, but there's no point at the same time in chasing Derek Warwick.
And there is Keke Rosberg in 5th position. Charged up, he seems to have got going again as Piquet goes through. There is Rosberg in 5th place. There's the world champion in the Brabham BMW. And you can see visually that the gap is closing between Rosberg and Piquet, and Arnoux, the new 3rd place man, is pulling away from the Brabham BMW of Nelson Piquet, and De Angelis is only just a little bit behind Keke Rosberg in 6th position, tailed by Belov 7th.
Yes, and this is very much the point. It's really that we don't really want Arnoux to pull away too fast unless he's totally confident he's got enough fuel, and that is Belov into the pits at a very late stage, and it's not tyres.
It's ballast. Now, this is very interesting. The Tyrrell is so light that in order to comply with the 520 kilograms minimum weight requirement, it has to come in at the tail end of the race and take on ballast. It's had the big advantage of running very light for the first 62 laps of the race, but Bella just rushed in there, took on some water balance to ensure that when they put his car on the weighbridge, it will be 520 kilograms or more, and I do not think that he lost a place. He was in 7th position. He's a long, long way. Well, he can't have lost a position, because Ayrton Senna is now in 8th position, 2 laps behind Belov, and on lap 63, the race order is Michele Alboreto leading Derek Warwick by some 40 seconds, with René Arnoux 3rd, with Nelson Piquet in 4th position there, being caught by Keke Rosberg 5th. Behind them is Elio De Angelis 6th. Stefan Belov, having made his ballast stop, is in 7th place. Those are the 7 competitors on the same lap. Ayrton Senna, a lap adrift, is 8th. Torbay is 9th. Sura is 10th. Jonathan Palmer has moved up to 11th place. And that is about it in terms of cars left still in the running. And as we expected, Zolder has taken its toll of cars.
This is undoubtedly the excitement remaining in what has been really a very good and very interesting race indeed, as Rosberg finally gets right and properly onto Piquet's heels. I think it would be, and Rosberg having a little look, he's always ready to have a go just in case, as we've seen on 2 occasions today, quite brilliant cases of opportunist overtaking. He's not close enough now to have a go, but then we get up to the chicane that leads onto the pit straight, and Rosberg's car has been very good there today. Now he's perfectly placed behind Piquet. They're braking now for it, turn in, and he's had very good traction out of this, and a good run, and he's getting good traction again. Now look at that, Rosberg is going to get past him if he can go, but the Brabham is so quick on the straight line. Terrific battle of bravery, and Rosberg's got it.
And he moves up into the 4th position, ahead of Nelson Piquet, behind Arnoux, Warwick and Alboreto on lap 64. Look at it again.
Yes, Rosberg had to fight because the Brabham's so quick, and he was behind him, but he got his car. All he has to do is get alongside from that position, inside line. Piquet has no corner to turn into, so he has to let Rosberg go. And that was terrific stuff. Battle of 2 really great champions, battling it out in very equally matched cars.
Credit where credit is due. The tyre position is there is the leader on the Goodyear tyres that hadn't gone so well until this race. Derek Warwick is in second place on Michelin. Arnoux is third on Goodyear. Now, Keke Rosberg is fourth on Goodyear. Piquet is fifth on Michelin. And Elio De Angelis is sixth on Goodyear. And that's Alboreto. Number 27, that famous number. Alan Jones had it. Villeneuve had it. James Hunt had it. Now Alboreto has it. The man from Milan in his 44th Grand Prix, 2 of which he has won. He scored no points in the 1984 World Championship so far, having led in Brazil until he had brake caliper trouble, which spun him out of contention. He went out in South Africa, and he is now up to Elio De Angelis, who is in 6th position. And it looks as though, before very much longer, the race leader, Michele Alboreto, is going to lap the 6th place man. And is that trouble? The marshals are gesticulating violently. I can't imagine why. There doesn't seem to be any problem that they could see. De Angelis is right up with, it looks like, Rosberg. Arnoux fastest so far, 1 minute point 3. Sorry, 1 minute 19.3, which is a new lap record. John Watson held the lap record here from 1982, 1 minute 20.2. So Arnoux is just under a second faster than the previous lap record, and is therefore obviously the fastest man on the track. And the race order on this, the 66th lap, as we look at Alboreto, the leader, catching De Angelis, is Alboreto leading. Warwick is in second place. Arnoux is third and being caught by De Angelis.
Well, is Arnoux in trouble? Because he seems to have fallen right back, and that is Alboreto closing up on him to lap him. So it seems very strange. Maybe he's had a spin. I think because he's definitely dropped back. He's dropped miles back where he was. He was way up in second place, and now he's dropped back to just in front of De Angelis, and they're both about to be lapped. So I can only imagine, and he seems to be perfectly healthy now, so I can only imagine that he's had a spin.
Alboreto leads. Warwick second. Rosberg is in third position now, ahead of Nelson Piquet. Fifth is René Arnoux, and sixth is Elio De Angelis, who is about to be caught by Michele Alboreto. We're looking at that now.
Yes, you might remember the intelligence test I was discussing before, and it looks like that René Arnoux failed it, but not in the way that was one predictable route. He just set fastest lap. He was going away from the people in front of him with no chance of catching Warwick for second place. So unless it's something that I don't know about happening, he just had a spin of his own accord. The question is why, and that would appear to be an intelligence failure.
René Arnoux, having sought John Watson to have a personal interview with him about something that John wrote about him, is not going to be very happy at the end of this race, unless he starts going again. There's the race leader. He is on his 68th lap now, very, very close to his third Grand Prix win. 2 of them were for Tyrrell, both of them in America. He won at Las Vegas and he won at Detroit in successive years. And a big spin here, one of the Renaults, it's Derek Warwick. It's Tombay, sorry, it's Tombay. Tombay spun there in 9th position, a lap adrift, and coming up to him now is his teammate behind the white car. Derek Warwick is about to lap his teammate Patrick Tombay, who's had a pretty miserable Belgian Grand Prix. Lap 68, Michele Alboreto, and that's the brabham of Nelson Piquet. So Piquet out of the race once again to score no points. What a dreadful season this is for Nelson Piquet. Barbie, I forgot to tell you, went out some time ago, and Barbie's brabham is one of those 2 cars that are parked you can see a car on one side of the circuit and one on the other. One of them is a Ligier and the other is Fabi's Brabham. So out of the race, as we look at the race leader, Michele Alboreto, on his 68th lap, have gone Patrese, Prost, Boutsen, Mansell, Lafitte, Eno, Chiva, Winkelhock, Lauda, Brundle, Fabi, Baldi, and now Nelson Piquet. So Alboreto leads still by a cool 39 seconds from Derek Warwick, with Keke Rosberg in 3rd position and René Arnoux in 4th position. Up to 5th position now that Piquet is out goes De Angelis, and in 7th place is Stefan Bellof. 6th position is Stefan Bellof in the points again. Thanks to Piquet going out and thanks to an absolutely superb drive. Martin Brundle has had to retire from a Grand Prix for the first time. He finished in Brazil, he finished in South Africa, but he was destined not to finish here in Belgium. And there's a problem. It looks to me as though Piquet's, maybe his gearbox is locked up, but for some reason or another, the marshals, there's Piquet, can't get his car off the circuit. Piquet looking a bit mystified about it, but giving some cheerful advice. It's a great tribute to Nelson, who used to be a bit mercurial, that he has really settled down in the last few seasons and can certainly take adversity with a smile, that he did so there. And there goes Michele Alboreto across the line on, as you see, his last lap. This is lap 70 in this shortened by 1 lap Belgian Grand Prix, because the warm-up lap was included with the originally intended 71 laps. And you are looking at a man who has driven an absolutely superb race. He qualified in pole position after practice. He confirmed his promise by being fastest in the warm-up lap. He has brought Ferrari to the forefront again.
Yes, that's Alboreto for the first time really in the top team. Not that that's only his first on film, for whom he won 2 Grand Prix quite brilliantly, but they couldn't provide him with the car that both they wanted to provide him and he wanted. Now, he's for the first time in Ferrari confirming the really exceptional talent he has. He's poised, he makes no mistakes, he's thoroughly un-Italian, if I might put it like that, in the way he drives and his approach, and he's driven an absolutely flawless and immaculate race today. And then we must say that Derek Warwick also has driven absolutely marvellously. He's had a jolly good meeting all weekend, and I think I'm right in saying that this could put him into 2nd place in the championship if he can just finish out this final lap in one piece. And that's marvellous news for all British fans, particularly those of us who were very confident, as Alboreto takes the line, that Derek Warwick would make a great account of himself in a proper car.
Michele Alboreto has won his 3rd Grand Prix and his first for Ferrari, confirming that we have a truly great Italian driver back in the Ferrari team again. Something that Enzo Ferrari resisted for a long time due to the criticism that he takes from the very vociferous Italian media if anything goes wrong with an Italian driver. And we look now at Derek Warwick coming home in 2nd position in the Renault, which, subject to our being able to add up all the other points quickly, will take him into 2nd place in the World Championship. Derek Warwick 2nd then, as we look down at Michele Alboreto, and we wait now for Keke Rosberg to come home in 3rd position in the Williams Honda. Another magnificent drive, in its way even better than that of the race winner Michele. And look at this! This is Rosberg! This is Rosberg coasting and retiring on the last lap. My goodness, another sensational development in the closing stages of a Grand Prix. Keke Rosberg not finishing, and that means to say that René Arnoux is going to finish in 3rd position, and only the first 3 will have completed the full race distance, with Elio De Angelis in 4th position, Stefan Bellof in 5th place, and Ayrton Senna should come up into 6th position. Again, there is Ayrton Senna. He's finished the race because he was 2 laps behind. But with that sensational closing news and confirmation awaited, certainly Alboreto has won. Warwick second, Arnoux third, De Angelis in fourth position, and, sorry, let's say that again, Alboreto the winner. Warwick second, Arnoux third, Rosberg fourth, De Angelis fifth, Bellof in sixth position, scoring a point for Tyrrell.
Hier Bernie Ecclestone, dat is de grote man, de leidende figuur in Formule 1. Het wordt nu bevestigd dat Rosberg uit de uitslag verdwijnt. 1 Alboreto, 2 Warwick, 3 Arnoux, 4 De Angelis, dan Senna en dan Bellof. Dat is de lijst van de rijders die hier punten halen voor het wereldkampioenschap. Alboreto, Warwick, Arnoux, De Angelis, Senna en Bellof. Er wordt bevestigd hiervan op de toren dat Rosberg dus uit de uitslag zou wegvallen, maar dat komt hier nu anders op het bord. Het is afwachten wat het wordt. 1 Alboreto staat hier, 2 Derek Warwick, 3 Arnoux, 4 Rosberg, 5 De Angelis en 6 Stefan Bellof. Wij kunnen in de voorlopige stand voor het wereldkampioenschap in elk geval nu al zeggen dat Prost 15 punten haalt. Wereldkampioenschap wordt de stand hier aangegeven. 1 Alain Prost 15 punten, 2 Derek Warwick met 10 punten, 3 komt Niki Lauda 9 punten, hij had er 9, 4 Michele Alboreto na zijn overwinning van vandaag de eerste punten voor hem, 9 punten. Dat is ook het geval voor het Ferrari team dat nog niets had gescoord. Keke Rosberg staat er ook met 9. De Angelis op de 6e plaats met 6. Arnoux op de 7e met 4. Patrese met 3. Cheever ook 3 punten. 10e Maarten Brundle 2. Terwijl hier nu de wagen van Keke Rosberg door techniciens wordt weggehaald van de omloop, kunnen we meteen de stand geven van het wereldkampioenschap van de constructoren. McLaren, dat is het team van Lauda en van Prost, dat al 2 keer won, heeft geen enkel punt gescoord, vandaag 24 behouden hier. Ferrari komt op de 2e plaats met 13, Renault 3e plaats met 11, Williams 4 met 9 en Lotus 5 met 6. Alfa Romeo had er 6 en behoudt er 6 ook. Preben was ook goed op weg om de eerste punten te halen, maar toen is Nelson Piquet uitgevallen. Op het circuit van Zolder vandaag een recordopkomst. En wat is er bewezen dat inderdaad Zolder een totaal ander circuit is dan de meeste anderen. De teams die tot nog toe Formule 1 hebben aangevoerd, in de eerste plaats McLaren met Prost en Lauda, die hebben hier niks uitgehaald, zijn uit de wedstrijd verdwenen. En daar dan het eigen huis in beeld, de cameraman die vanuit de helikopter zo lange tijd beelden heeft bezorgd van de wedstrijd. Wedstrijd die door de suprematie van Michele Alboreto wat de eerste plaats betreft niet zoveel spanning heeft gebracht, maar die dan voor de ereplaatsen toch heel wat mensen heeft geboeid. Vooral door de terugkeer eerst van Rosberg en dan van Arnoux. Rosberg dan uitgevallen in de ultieme ronde, kwam daardoor op 1 ronde, maar kon nog net wat de afgelegde afstand betreft uitkomen voor De Angelis op de 4e plaats. Op de 6e plaats toch wijzen op de voortreffelijke prestatie van Stefan Bellof met een atmosferische krachtbron. Hij is 6e en haalt dan ook een punt voor het wereldkampioenschap. Hier is Michele Alboreto, 27 jaar. Eerste pole position in Zolder hier. Zijn 3e overwinning in Formule 1 heeft hij behaald. Wat de snelste ronde betreft, de tijd van Alboreto in de oefenrit, de kwalificatieritten, was een record, verbeterde de tijd van Prost. En wat de snelste ronde betreft heeft René Arnoux de beste tijd van voorheen van Alain Prost ook al verbeterd met meer dan 1 seconde. Het ronderecord in de wedstrijd ligt op 193 kilometer, 483 meter als gemiddelde. Voor Alboreto in de kwalificatie was dat 204 kilometer, 996 meter. Wat nu het circuit van Zolder zelf betreft, dames en heren, de Formule 1 grote prijs van België verhuist voor 2 jaar naar het circuit van Spa-Francorchamps. Dat is zo overeengekomen. Wat het nadien wordt, dat staat nog niet op papier. Maar daarover zal allicht in de komende maanden, allicht ook jaren, nog een flink woordje worden gezegd. Maar Zolder als aantrekkingspunt voor Formule 1 wedstrijden voor het publiek heeft vandaag bewezen dat het een grote leefbaarheid heeft. Vooral met het goede weer. Vooral dan door de spanning toch die rond Formule 1 heerste met de terugkeer naar de Europese wedstrijden. Heeft een uitzonderlijke belangstelling bij elkaar gehaald. En misschien geraakt men uit de kosten. Wat Thierry Boutsen betreft, die heeft het dus met zijn turbomotor en zijn aeroswagen niet gehaald. Is moeten uitvallen. In Imola kan hij op weer van een beroep doen op die turbomotor, net als Soerer. Maar deze man, Michele Alboreto, beleefde hier een hoogdag vandaag. Zoals ik net zei, 27 jaar, 7 in het wereldkampioenschap, 82, 12e in dat van 83. En nu in het Ferrari-team. Hij is teruggekeerd naar het Ferrari-team nadat hij een paar jaar bij Jarrell heeft gereden. Duidelijk de beste man. Dat is voor hem ook mentaal een grote opkikker, want hij gaat daarmee Patrick Tambay, die wegging, toch wel leren dat men er goed aan deed om hem bij Ferrari binnen te halen. Daar zijn nu Arnoux en Alboreto de eerste mensen. Ja, hier komt de prins Metternich uit de helikopter. Dat is de voorzitter van de FIA, Fédération Internationale Automobielen. De voertaal is het Frans in de automobielwereld. Terwijl hier nu de wagen van Keke Rosberg wordt binnengehaald. Het is die van Lafitte eerst. Ja, dus de wagen van Lafitte. Die naar de pits terugkomt. Lafitte die in de eerste 15 ronden is uitgevallen. Voor de 5e keer dus een grote prijs van België die gewonnen wordt door de rijder die in de pole position is gestart. Terwijl hier de wagen van het Ligier-team wordt binnengebracht van de Fransman Eno, de debutant in Formule 1. En daar staat hij dan, Michele Alboreto. Dirk Work meldt zich ook om naar het podium te komen. Wordt daar omringd door de heren van het organisatiecomité hier. Dat zijn Belien, Van der Voort en Gijskes. De voorzitter van de Belgische Automobielfederatie, Graaf de Wiedekerke, is erbij. En ondertussen wordt het Brokkenpark gevuld. Hier wordt de wagen onder meer van Alain Prost binnengebracht. Hier is Michele Alboreto bij Tyrrell in het team van Ken Tyrrell geleerd. En daar is heel wat te leren. Is een routinier, is een ervaringrijke man. Naar de Italiaanse thuishaven teruggekeerd bij Ferrari. En op de 3e plaats vindt hij dan terug zijn ploegmaat René Arnoux. Een grote dag voor Ferrari, voor het Italiaanse merk. Een grote dag ook allicht voor de organisatoren van Imola, want die krijgen in de komende grote prijs enorm veel volk over de vloer. En wat wordt het nu de stand voor het wereldkampioenschap? Het is afwachten of de slechte dag van McLaren, Prost, Lauda in deze grote prijs van België ook zo wordt vertaald in de komende weken. Anders zal het Ferrari-team zoals het vandaag draaide door het meesterschap van Alboreto en later dan door de terugkeer van Arnoux in de slotfase nog heel wat brokken kunnen maken. De grote prijs van België heeft nu meteen Michele Alboreto als overwinnaar gekregen. Hij werd in de voorbije jaren voorafgegaan door Alain Prost, de Fransman, Watson, Reutemann, Pironi, Scheckter, Andretti, Nielsen, 2 keer Lauda, Fittipaldi en de eerste keer Jackie Stewart. We gaan nu 2 jaar naar Spa-Francorchamps, waar vorig jaar Alain Prost won. Toen nog met een Renault-wagen, nu met McLaren. Dat was het uit Zolder. Dames en heren, nog even de uitslag doornemen. 1 Michele Alboreto, 2 Dirk Work, 3 René Arnoux, 4 Keke Rosberg, 5 Elio De Angelis, 6 Stefan Bellof. Dat zijn de rijders die punten oogsten voor het wereldkampioenschap. En wat de stand voor het wereldkampioenschap betreft, blijft Alain Prost aan de leiding met 15 punten. Niki Lauda, die heeft er 9 en deze man scoort zijn eerste punten in het seizoen. Michele Alboreto. Afspraak, dames en heren, voor rechtstreeks reportage van Formule 1 wedstrijden krijgt u wat de RT betreft voor de grote prijs van Monaco, de eerste zondag van juli. Dat was het uit Zolder, tot wederhoor.